Good day, everyone. I'm Forester Arnan Araza, and I represent a group of Filipino foresters for this study, including former professors, friends, and mentor of mine. So I'll be presenting use of time series satellite data to assess fluxes of key ecosystem services in watersheds with surface mining. So a few disclaimers before I start. So this study is not meant to blame any institution, but is initiated to help these concerned institutions to reaffirm their environmental mandates and responsibilities. So next, I'm neither a soil specialist or a mining expert, so feel free to ask my co-authors or, well, I anticipate other co-authors to help answer any questions related to such. And lastly, this is still an ongoing study, so your inputs would be valuable to us. The main motivation of this study is the need to account for the key ecosystem services in watersheds with surface mining. These include carbon stocks and sequestration and soil erosion regulation of forested watersheds. If ever, this could be one of the few pilot areas for ES accounting in critical watersheds. Moreover, we are using the UN SIA framework, an accounting framework recently designated as an international standard and has been piloted in the Philippines since 2016. Remote sensing, or the acquisition of the physical characteristics of the Earth's surface from above, usually from satellites and planes, is considered to be in its golden era. Satellite data is growing and being freely accessible. Images with high spatial resolution of at least 10 meters and high temporal resolution with new images at least every 1 to 2 weeks are being more available. What is more, satellites such as Landsat offer decades of images useful for knowing the history of areas of interest and for time series analysis. Surface mining activities can be detected by remote sensing, especially land conversions due to changes in area signals, such as from vegetated land to a barren land or water. Optical satellites like Landsat again, for instance, can detect the greenness of the landscape based on the green material of plants such as canopy and leaves. RS-based monitoring of land surface is made more efficient by platforms such as Google Earth Engine, which allows using many computer processors online and provides smooth access to satellite data. Our last motivation is the already made findings from a recently concluded external project. This RS-based monitoring of watersheds with mining is implemented in 3 areas in Palawan. So here we decide not to disclose the mining companies so we can focus more on the study objectives and encourage more results and method-oriented questions. The choice of the study area is the mentioned past evaluation project. So the analysis period is from 2002 to 2018, wherein the start year is pre-mining period, common to all sites. Okay, this slide shows the methodology of the study, categorized into the estimation of 2 ecosystem services of forested watersheds, the carbon stocks and sequestration, and the soil regulation service. So these two are derived from an above ground biomass map and an erosion susceptibility map that we modeled. So common to the 2 methods is the use of a vegetation index as input. We use the normalized difference vegetation index or NDVI among other VIs as it can distinguish vegetated area versus bare land, quite straightforward, which is the main concern of the study. More importantly, we use NDVI being the same vegetation index used by the existing empirical equations in the literature that we adopted for the modeling. So other RS data include the ISRIC soil inputs at 250 meter resolution, So they are soil texture layers and organic matter. The 30-meter digital elevation model, the open access global rainfall erosivity factor at 1 kilometer resolution from SDAC. So in terms of the pre-processing, it includes annual averaging of these NDVI time series consistent with the target yearly accounting period, and the resampling of the rasters into a common spatial resolution. So we mainly used Google Earth Engine for spatial data download and pre-processing, and we switch into R for additional geospatial processes and of course statistical models. The method to estimate soil loss is the classical RUSLE, or Revised Universal Soil Loss Equation, which is an old but dependable empirical equation. It estimates sheet and rill erosion at tons per hectare per year. So we also used RUSLE before to estimate the same forest ES in the past accounting efforts for the field waves and Pro4 projects. So RUSLE can be estimated using 6 factors, namely RKLSP factors. So we have R factor, or the rainfall erosivity, which is a measure of how forceful a rainfall event at certain locations. We have K factor, or soil erodibility, which is a function of soil texture and organic matter. The LS factor corresponds to slope length and steepness. C factor means cover factor, or the influence of vegetation to soil erodibility. And last is the management factor, or P factor, which is excluded here. The product of the factors results in soil loss at tons per hectare per year. So we all use spatial inputs for these factors. Next is the AGB map using a recently published method by yours truly. So AGB is derived from NDVI after calibrating the two using a national forest inventory data from DNR, which follows a systematic sampling and a nested plot establishment. So an exponential model was fitted between NDVI and this plot-based AGB, and such model is used to map AGB at non-plot locations. So from the biomass map, above ground carbon stocks are derived by a common multiplier of 0.47. Okay, so let us dive into the key results of the study. So here you can see time lapses of above ground biomass in the past 2 decades. So you see the videos play one after another from one study area to another. Okay. So the decrease in AGB and of course carbon is expected mainly because of the conversion from vegetated area into the mining area. Well, the more important thing is to be able to determine where the losses are and quantify them. So we think also that this estimate of biomass carbon stocks is still underestimated. So we need to account for the below ground component also, and of course soil carbon. Okay, so here we see the opposite for the time series soil loss, as we see more violet colors 1 year after another. Okay, note that this is an indication of decreasing soil regulation in the area. So quantifying the actual soil loss is also of course possible, and would need a bit of scaling considering the pixel size of the map. Yeah. Okay, so here I show you the graphs of the mean soil loss and NDVI, likely AGB also, for a sample study area. So you can see, aside from the obvious steep decline of NDVI, and /AGB from 2009 to 2012, mirrored by the steep increase in soil loss from the said period. Aside from that, we can also see an opposite trend from 2014 to 2017, which can be indications of slight greening in the areas. But of course, that should be validated. Okay, now that we can efficiently quantify ES losses driven by mining per se, we would produce the same maps at the watershed level and estimate the fluxes of ecosystem services at accounting periods. So in that way, we can determine whether indeed the watershed is experiencing a net loss in ecosystem services and its corresponding monetary terms after valuation step, valuation method. Moreover, we can recommend how much efforts are still needed to attain a net gain of ES in the watersheds. So, paano mabawi yung losses by mining. Well, assuming that mining companies conduct their rehabilitation and restoration efforts in the same watershed. So, to make it more possible, so data on the actual rehab sites, restoration sites of the companies, and well, environmental bodies would be super helpful. Okay, as takeaway messages, would like to emphasize the importance of remote sensing for land monitoring, well, in general and in specific applications such as our study. Okay, we hope that this effort would be helpful to the concerned institutions to strengthen their environmental commitments and mandates. Lastly, I encourage anyone who is interested in the topic and wants to specialize in environmental remote sensing to take part in our study. That's it. Thank you and mabuhay.